Good to see everybody here. We're looking forward to a Thursday practice. It's getting long. It's been a long time, but Thursday will certainly be here in a matter of time. We'll be ready to go. So with that, I'll open it up.
Start with Herbie. Go ahead, Herbie.
Hey, Coach, the last few times you squared off against the Texans, you obviously had to pay attention to DeAndre Hopkins. This time around, it's a completely different wide receiver core. What are some of the challenges you see looking at how that retooled Texans wide receiver core?
Yeah, the biggest challenge, Herbie, is probably where we don't really know who the go-to guy is. We kind of knew that last year. Whether that was good or bad, I don't know, because he was pretty good. But it sounds and feels like they're going to spread the ball around, which means we're going to have to deal with a bunch of them. And they've got some speed over there. We know what Fuller's like, and Cooks they add to the mix. And I've always felt Randall Cobb was a good football player. And, you know, we don't, without any film to go off of, not really sure where they're headed in terms of what they're going to put out there. But we're going to have to figure it out quick. That's part of the chess game in the first game of the season. Even when you have the preseason games, there's still a lot of things you got to figure out.
Let's go to Adam Teicher. Go ahead, Adam.
Hey, Steve, how you doing today?
Great, Adam. Great.
Good, thanks. Just curious, because of the unusualness of the year, whether your list of concerns 3 days, 4 days before a game are more than normal, less than normal, the same as normal? I mean, is it unusual year in that regard?
Yeah, probably more because of the unknowns. You can get a little bit off of the preseason games. I mean, you get a little bit of feel for, you know, how an opponent's going to interact with each other. And I think that if we had our normal 4 preseason games, we probably would have seen 25, 30 snaps of their first group. So we kind of missed that. So it's a little bit of a guessing game. But again, that's going to be part of the chess match going on during the game. And the team that makes the adjustments best will have a better chance of winning. And again, I've told our guys that because it is unique, it's really more – and the first game really is like this all the time. It's more about us and what we do and how we function than it is about trying to get tips on what they may or may not do. So we're going to kind of focus on that.
Let's go to Pete Sweeney. Go ahead, Pete.
A big challenge for this game, obviously, is going into it without Breeland. You'd said, you know, you're replacing him probably with a couple guys. I was going to ask you about L'Jarius in particular. Where's your comfort level potentially with him on the outside, and what tells you that he's going to be okay with this baptism by fire potentially?
Yeah, well, all we can go off of is what he's done in practice. And he's had some really good snaps and certainly some snaps like a normal rookie out in that position, which is not an easy position to play early in your career. But we'll mix and match it over there. We got confidence in LJ. He's a hard worker. Even from the first day he got there, I thought he was one of the better competitors that was out there. And if you're going to play out of that position, you've got to compete. You got to be an elite competitor. You got to let things just roll off your back if it doesn't go so well. So those are the things we don't know about some of our guys, is, you know, how they react to adversity. We try to give them as much adversity in practice, but it's nothing like the game. So that is going to be one of the things we'll focus on, is when it doesn't go right, can we bounce back up and come up with a good play?
Let's go to Nate Taylor. Go ahead, Nate.
Hey, Steve. Good morning to you.
Hey, Nate.
So much in football about maybe the first game being an advantage for the offense because you're not sure what you're going to see. I'm wondering, could that be the same for you from a defensive standpoint, particularly in the secondary, because you have so many new players, you have the ability to move guys around? Do you think that could give you guys an advantage in some ways that maybe is unusual for the common football fan?
Yeah, I mean, I hope so. I guess a little bit of it depends on how you're deploying your offense. If you're a big team that looks for matchups, you know, maybe they'll just try to find something to put a certain guy. If you're a team that just attacks the scheme, they probably have a pretty good bead on what we do. We play each other twice, and maybe so they don't feel as much pressure that way. I guess it's a little bit dependent upon how they look at things. I'm talking about offensively, but hopefully we'll have enough wrinkles in there where we can give them at least a few headaches, right?
We're going to go right down the line, take 3 more. We'll go Rob, Sarin, and Adam. Go ahead, Rob.
Hey, Coach Spags, good morning. I've heard other defensive coordinators talk about their concern with tackling because most of the teams early may lean on the running game, especially with the new guys, the amount of tackling you didn't have in the preseason. Where's your concern level there?
No question, my number one concern. I'd echo that if that's what people are saying, I agree 100%. We've tried to simulate it as much as possible. We didn't have a lot of live periods. We did a little bit of tackling that way. But I think the assistant coaches done a great job getting it done as best they could. We got a big heavy bag out there we're trying to hit and try to put them in those positions. And I've taken, I don't know whether this will help or not, but every day we watch tape of tackling. I'm talking about good tackles, how to tackle. So maybe it's a visual thing. But it's a concern we won't know until we get in the middle of the game and see how some of these guys react.
Let's go to Sarin. Go ahead, Sarin.
Coach, thank you for the time.
Sure.
A couple of questions. First of all, number one, you were talking about L'Jarius Sneed, and one of the things he had in college, he's playing corner and safety. And I had one personnel guy I talked to a long time ago told me, "You show me a guy that they can't really figure out what he is in college, and he comes off my board." Right? That was like a big negative, and it seems like maybe the NFL's gone exactly the opposite direction. Right? That hybridization, that safety that can come up and cover the slot, or the slot that can roll back, is maybe more valuable. That maybe that's flipped, and what was seen as a negative is now a tremendous positive. So I wonder if you could comment on that. And then if you could just say what it was that flashed about the young defensive linemen and Wharton and Harris, and how Dana fits in, just kind of what it was that got those guys on this team.
Yeah, the first one, I've always seen a college player that plays different positions to me as a positive. I mean, it tells me he obviously at least has some pretty good football smarts. It's not, I mean, in college football today, defenses are pretty complex. So, and I thought LJ functioned pretty well as a safety. Of course, we had to be certain or convinced that he could function on the outside as a corner, and we did. And he's done a nice job, but it's interesting that you say that. It's funny how people think of something in two different ways, but we did look at it as an advantage. Your second question on the young guys, listen, we've been really pleasantly surprised with a couple of guys that have come in here and we didn't really know a lot about. But you're talking about Turk Wharton. He's been a nice surprise. Coach Daly has done a great job with him. Damone Harris was with us. I think you were talking about Damone, right? He was with us last year. And, of course, he got dinged a little bit, but we know what he can do. And Mike Dana, another pleasant surprise. Those two guys, I'm talking about Turk and Mike. Listen, for guys that have not been in the NFL very long, they sure operate like true pros. They learned it somewhere along the way. But from the standpoint of, we noticed it right in those Zoom meetings. I remember Coach Daly talking about both those guys specifically, how much he was looking forward to working with them, because in these meetings that you and I are doing right now, he was thoroughly impressed. And those two guys have just continually impressed the coaches.
Let's go to Adam Teicher for the last one. Go ahead, Adam.
Hey, Steve, you touched on Mike Dana a minute ago, but wanted to ask you about him and also about Taco and what you've seen from them, what you maybe learned about them in the last few weeks of practice, and maybe give us a peek at what their roles might be when the season starts.
Yeah, good question. I mean, Taco, listen, he's been around the league a little bit. He's long. Every time I walk behind him, I think he's growing. Maybe I'm shrinking. Who knows? But he's got a skill set. We're going to try to get him in the right spots. Mike Dana, on the other hand, looks like a guy who's kind of has a little bit of both. And he was at Michigan a guy that played inside. By both, I mean, a first and second down run stopper, and I think he can get on the edge and give us a little bit in the pass. But, I don't know if we'll get him inside or what his role will be completely. Probably try to sprinkle some things in there for him initially. But listen, when you go in the first game, I don't know how many D linemen will carry to the active list, but all of those guys are going to have to play, who's ever up. I mean, guys haven't played 60 minutes. I hope we don't play 83 plays like we did the first time we played them, but however many number of plays we play, the D line is going to have to rotate. So whoever's up will get some playing time in there.
Coach, we really appreciate your time today.
Okay.
Thank you.
You got it. Thanks.